I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Starting a few minutes early today to accommodate this busy schedule of a very special guest. The Secretary of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, Marcia L. Fudge, is with me. She's got a jam-packed day. I was with her earlier this morning when she was in my neighborhood in North Minneapolis talking about special initiatives bringing over $18 million into making homes more livable for older Americans. And she's also talking today here in Twin Cities with leaders about plans for affordable housing nationwide. Secretary Fudge, good to see you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
If you would recap the message from this morning. I thought it was wonderful that you were in the home of my neighbors here in North Minneapolis, people that are retired and who have challenges. And your mission and message was that there are resources to help you stay in your home. Talk about that.
Well, one of the things that we have realized as we confront this housing crisis that we find ourselves in as a nation is that we have to preserve housing. We have to keep every single house that we can maintain in play. We can't afford to lose any housing. And so what we've realized is that because we've done such a poor job as a nation to assist seniors with aging in place, our new program, Home Mod, which now, as of today, will take in really about $45 million total to help people stay in their homes. And so we're giving them minor modifications, whether it be fixing their lighting, putting smoke detectors in their homes. We put grab bars in, appliances, things that can allow them to age gracefully, but safely and stay in their homes. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, is that we have neighborhoods where people have lived in their houses for 30 or 40 years, want to stay in their homes, want to stay in their neighborhoods, but because of lack of resources have been forced out. So we want to make sure that they can stay.
You also today are meeting in South Minneapolis to talk about larger housing issues. You mentioned it by saying the challenge is that there's not enough housing. What will this afternoon's announcements tell our community and our country?
One of the things it's going to do is make sure that they know that we are focused on the problem. We know that we are short about 1.5 million homes today. And we know that the only way we can deal with the crisis and bring the cost of housing down is to put more supply in the market. So we have to build new housing. We have to at least build new housing units so that we can take the pressure that is on the market now off of the market. When you have rents that are almost $2,000 average, this is the median across the country, we know that it's too high. But the only way we can get those rents down is to put more properties, multifamily housings on the market. That takes a will and a commitment from local leaders, from state leaders, from county leaders to say to the country, to say to the people they represent, look, we're all willing to work together to make this work. So everybody needs to put in and everybody needs to be on the same page. So we can no longer have zoning that is exclusionary. We can no longer make it more difficult for developers to find resources to build. We have to provide land that we know we can provide. And we have to look at transportation and where we build homes so that we can make sure that people can have access to services and transportation. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is trying to provide a resource and a way to make everybody come together to do what we know must be done.
In the last housing crisis, Madam Secretary, Black wealth was almost depleted. It went through a wrenching. We were wrung, our pockets were wrung dry. We lost wealth here in Minnesota and around the country. What is the antidote? How do we restore Black wealth through Black home ownership and through the legacy potential of being a homeowner?
I'm fortunate enough to chair the President's Task Force on Property Appraisal and Valuation Equity. What we have found is that in older communities, especially like the one that I was in this morning, the more Black and brown those communities become, the lower the valuation of those homes. And we know that there is a great loss of wealth just in property valuation. So, one of the things that we are trying to do is bring forward fairness and equity in how we value homes. That's the first thing. Because if we value them properly, we know that Black and brown communities will see an increase of almost 25% in the value of their homes. Secondly, what we're doing is we're making it easier for underserved communities and people of color to purchase homes through FHA financing. So if you are looking today at purchasing a home, we've done a number of things. We know most people can afford their rent, so they can afford their mortgage. The problem is down payment. So we're doing down payment assistance. We know that most people of color who come for mortgages, at least 46 to 50%, have student debt and have been pretty much declared to be not creditworthy. So we basically neutralized student debt that we believe was going to help. For people who are having difficulty staying in their homes, we have created a 40-year mortgage for people who are in arrears so that they can spread those payments over time and stay in their homes. We don't want the houses back. We want people to be able to live in their homes, in their communities. So we think that wealth building now is going to be easier because it's going to be easier to own a home.
Your advice to younger people, middle-aged people that have been renters, what would you tell them to do? Interest rates are creeping up. They're maybe going down right now, but what's the long-term prospect for home ownership and wealth creation from your point of view? What do you want your administration and your tenure as the Secretary of Housing to have created an opportunity for all Americans, Black Americans, people of color in particular?
Some people like renting, but I would suggest that if you really want to start to have wealth and pass down generational wealth, you do it by buying a home. Most people in this country, be they Black, brown, it doesn't make any difference, start to create wealth through home ownership. I would further say that what I would like to see as a part of my legacy is that we have encouraged enough people to buy homes that our numbers go up significantly. Today, FHA, which of course comes under us, right now finances or insures the financing of almost 80% of all first-time home buyers. 80%. I'd like that number to be bigger. Last year alone, we had almost 200,000 mortgages just for African Americans. We had almost that number, a little higher, for Latinos and Hispanics. We are building our numbers, and we want to keep building our numbers. But more importantly, we want to make housing affordable. We want people to live in safe, decent places. We want people to feel good about where they live. That's our real goal, is to treat every single person with dignity and respect and put them in places they can be proud to call home.
You'll be at a place this afternoon called Elliott Twins, and there you're focusing on preserving affordable housing and expanding it. I know you've got to go. Thank you for taking this time, but take a minute, tell us what the message is for today's this afternoon program presentation at Elliott Twins in South Minneapolis.
One of the things we want to show the rest of the country is that where there's a will, there's a way. So if you put your mind to making it happen, we can do it. And so all of what I'm doing here today actually is showing models that can work. What you can do to make your communities better if everybody comes together. And that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon as well.
Great.
And I thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We're streaming this to Black Press USA, to the Black Press of America. And on behalf of my colleagues in the Black Press, and on behalf of my colleagues here in Twin Cities, I thank you so much for being here, taking time to be with us today. Secretary Marcia Fudge, thank you so much.
A pleasure. My pleasure.
That was great. Well, I'm so glad that she was able to take a minute to spend with us. Her presentation this morning was absolutely excellent, heartfelt. I tell you that she and her colleagues, her team, and the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, and the mayor of St. Paul, Brother Melvin Carter, the former mayor of St. Paul, Chris Coleman, who now heads Habitat for Humanity, and our Senator Tina Smith were all on hand to interact with a neighborhood family, ordinary folks who live down the street. I told her before we went on air that the place I'm broadcasting from right now, on Thomas Avenue, 2 blocks from where the presentation was this morning, is a place that I moved into in January of 1973. I think that's almost 50 years. I've been in this location, in this house, 50 years. And I can tell you that owning a home is both a privilege and a blessing. I've referred to this as the gift that keeps on giving. Owning a home has afforded me the chance to put my kids through excellent schools, to invest in and grow my business, to support the business as it expanded. And now my wife, Bobby, and I are in our 70s, mid 70s. We also are able to look at the assets we've created as part of our plan for, the next 25 years of our life, when we sort of shift our work from out of the day-to-day running of Insight News. But homeownership is key. Wealth creation is key, and it was wonderful that the Secretary, Marcia Fudge, chose to come to Minneapolis to talk about homeownership, about helping people that are older, people that my age. Actually, the requirement for the program she talked about specifically was a person 62 years old, people that are 62 and over, helping them stay in their homes. So why is that important? The owner of the home that the press conference this morning was held in talked about her biggest fear was coming home or being at home, and her grandson, who lives with her, coming to the door, coming in and finding her or her husband, both who have mobility issues, they're older, that either they had fallen or were stuck in a bathtub and couldn't get out, or something could happen, some catastrophe could happen that would immobilize them further. And just the thought of her describing that concern she had was personal to me, because we have experienced that in our home as well, where an accident takes place and someone's not home. I'm not home. I come home and my wife is immobilized. And so it hit me personally. And I guess I'm sharing it because I think you should see it personal too. What if the unthinkable, the unimaginable happened? Wouldn't you want to have your house outfitted in a way to mitigate the possibility of accident and injury? Well, that's what this program does. Again, she said it was a total of 45 million, but 18 million being added to that initiative. It's a national program, and it allows the agencies in the community, in our case, it's Habitat for Humanity, if you call them up and say that you want to just make sure that your place is as safe as it can be. One of the questioners was how much of an investment per unit is being made. The answer from the manager locally was that a lot can be done with a little. That on average, the program will invest somewhere around $2,500. What does that buy? It may buy grab bars for your or new rails for your stairway. It may buy updated and repaired electrical that makes you safer. It could buy, in this case, new appliances that were safer, more efficient, and that help you manage your life better as a senior living alone or living in your home. So great program. The takeaway is that the Habitat for Humanity, former Mayor Chris Coleman, former Mayor of St. Paul, is managing that. And what they really wanted to do and what I want to do is get the word out. If you, not only if you're here in Minnesota, but anywhere in the country, if you are approaching age 62 or beyond, live and want to improve the safety and mobility you have in your home, there's a resource that can help. The homeowner, Mrs. Smith, said in their closing remarks to the press conference this morning, they asked what was the criteria. And they mentioned some age criteria and some income criteria. But what she said, at the end of the day, this is if you are a senior and you need help. That's really what is driving this. So I say, as she said this morning, if you are a senior and you need help, it's help that you deserve. help that you can get, help that belongs to you. Reach for it, reach out for it, make a call to Housing and Urban Development, or if you're in Minnesota, call the Habitat for Humanity and find out what you can have access to that'll improve your comfort and your confidence and your safety in your home. If you know somebody, too often programs like this, resources come online, but because you didn't hear about it, you didn't know about it, you miss it, and you need it, you deserve it. So we'll do all we can here on this program and on our newspaper and other channels to get the word out. We think it's critically important that our people utilize resources like this when they become available. I mentioned to the secretary that we're streaming this live on Black Press USA, and we'll be posting this in a way that other Black newspapers around the country can get the information and share it in their local markets. I believe that the Black Press of America is a vital tool, an essential organization for connecting with our people nationwide. So I'm hopeful that we are demonstrating that reach both in this conversation, but also in the writing that we'll do and that we'll share to the Black Press USA news website, and in making this interview available to other publishers, other members of the 200-member Association of National Newspaper Publishers Association. Well, we're about ready to begin the regular program. We have regularly starting time at 1 o'clock, and guests are on the way. We want to invite you to hang out with us. If you have any questions or comments, this is the time to let me know or to join the conversation. We'd like to have this be a forum that is open and accessible. And if you are interested in asking a question or sharing a point of view, this is a great time to do it. We're going to put in the screen here how to connect, and we can bring you onto the program to share your concerns, your feelings, your stories. Vosh, you're able to put that up? I think you are. And we'd like to, again, invite you. In the meantime, I want to bring my co-host on. Brenda Lyle is here, and we can sort of roll into the program, though we began a little earlier today because of the opportunity to speak with Secretary I'm missing the name now. Secretary, tell me the name, Celine. Fudge. Secretary Fudge. Thank you. Yeah, I'm having a senior moment here. Secretary Fudge. And my daughter's here across the table from me here, and I had to call out for help. Say, give me the right name. You know what? But it's all good. It's all good. We're informal, we're flexible, and we are learning and growing. And these conversations are important. So it's important for me to hear from you. If you are tuned in or can tune in, we'd love to have you on the program. Again, Secretary Fudge, today, 2 major events this afternoon, I think at about maybe 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, in the 3 o'clock area, 2:30, 3:30 area. She's going to be over in South Minneapolis at Franklin Avenue. And this property called Elliott Twins is a public housing preservation of 174 deeply affordable units through the HUD rental assistance demonstration financing. Another property right nearby has experienced elimination of blight through the rehab of a long vacant building into 7 perpetually affordable home ownership condos. So people can learn about that opportunity, how to take advantage of it. Again, this morning, the presentation was about the older adult home modification grant, a grant that HUD made to organizations throughout the country. Today's announcement was that an additional $18 million was being put in behind the initial $45 million investment nationwide. And the purpose of that, the older home adult modification grant, is to allow people that are 62 years and over to stay in their homes because they've made the homes more safe by adding, minor fixes, sometimes major, but minor, quite often, things like rails, like guardrails, like grab bars, things like making sure your electrical works, that your appliances are okay. A lot of things you can do to make your house safer and more livable. And there are resources to enable you to do that. We want to make sure that you know about the resources. And as I said, we want to take this time to invite you, other people, into the conversation. We've listed the link to StreamYard. If you're interested in being in this conversation, we'd love to have you in it. I'm Al McFarlane. The program is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I see that my colleagues have joined me here, Diana Hawkins and Dee Phillipps, and also Brenda Lyle-Gray. I'll bring all of you guys in. Hello, Diana. Hello, Dee. And hello, Brenda. How are you all?
Happy Monday, Al. Hi, Dee. Hi, Brenda.
How are you?
Fine. How are you, ladies?
I can see that smile on Dee. It's not clouded in the dark, and what a beautiful smile. You've been hiding yourself, Dee.
Thank you.
Well, also is my friend and colleague, Michael Cheney. I asked Michael this morning to come in to give us an update on the number of projects that he's doing. Michael, good morning. How are you? Good afternoon. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me, Al. These are indeed exciting times, and Minneapolis has become almost the center of the volcano. So let's take full advantage of this national profile that we're involved in.
Well, let me start with my friend Shameka Bogan. Shameka is here. She's involved in a lot of things in the community. I'm working with her on some projects through the Stair Step Foundation and Minnesota Department of Transportation, but she also is a key leader on the team of State Senator Bobby Joe Champion, and she's doing other things in the community as well. Shameka, bring Shameka on, and hello, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi, Al. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for being here. You amazed me at all you do and how focused you seem to remain on each of these major, distinct tasks. And the beauty of it is that all of them lead to the path of improving our neighborhoods, improving our families, improving our communities. And you do this with a sense of both integrity and enthusiasm that is both inspiring and a model for how we should be with each other and for each other in community. So take a minute and talk about the project you're working on right now. And thank you for being here. Shameka, this program is unscripted, informal, and we let it flow the way it flows. So I'll be the person that asks you questions, but Michael and Diana and Dee, all of us are here to interact with you to support your vision, your work. And we know that you do the same for all the things that we're doing as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Al, and thank you to each of you. Honestly, it's an honor just to be here sitting with all of you because all of you do great work in the community. So I'll just take a few minutes just to talk about Open Streets West Broadway. I'm the project manager for this year's event, and so Open Streets West Broadway is coming up Saturday, September 10th. It's going to be 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And so if you're not familiar with what Open Streets West Broadway is, or even if you are familiar, this is kind of it in a nutshell. It's along West Broadway Avenue. It runs from Penn to Lindale, which is 17 blocks. And it's really just a big street festival that gets out organizations, individuals, food trucks, schools, churches, vendors that sell merchandise, kind of all things community are able to come together at this event. And so that is what I'm working on.
Open Streets, why is it called that? And who are the sponsoring organizations?
Absolutely. So Open Streets is a name that I don't know if you've seen other ones in the community, but there are 5 different open streets across Minneapolis. This is in collaboration with Our Streets. And so they are the organization that focuses on kind of reimagining the streets, being able to bike in the street, having like a car-free street for an extended period of time for an event. And so that neighbors, community, business owners can all kind of get out, talk, be together, and really, ride, dance, roll, stroll up and down the streets.
So they're going to shut down all of West Broadway for 17 blocks for a
Yep.
whole day? That's big.
Absolutely. So from Penn to Lindale. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So name some of the agencies, organizations, groups that'll be there. Let's promote them in a way that gets them business and gets them attention so that people can come to enjoy, to engage.
For sure. There are so many partners, and I will name a few, but there really are so many. This is really exciting for me. I've worked on open streets for a couple of years, just with programming blocks here and there and 2 or 3 at a time, and bridging together partnerships. But this year, it's really amazing. We have, like NAS, Summit Academy, and the YMCA are partnering together to do a large STEM event. We have some of the nonprofits that are coming together. Seeds to Harvest is coming together to do a big 3-on-3 basketball tournament with V3 and other organizations in the community. You have North Point that's doing their Fit for Fun event that they do every year. So their annual event, they will be partnering down on the Sanctuary block to do that down there. Again, how I mentioned Our Streets, they're a partner along with the city of Minneapolis with just bringing out resources and vendors and things. We also have 2 different small business blocks that are a part of it. So it's full of like local vendors from boutiques to people that do have brick and mortar locations to people that don't have brick and mortar locations. It will be food vendors. We have food trucks. So this year we got a really good turnout for food vendors. So we have over 22 food vendors registered for this year. And that's always something that we hear that people want more of. So more food. You have Sammy's Avenue Eatery that's right there by Juxtaposition. They're going to be coming out and doing some food outside of the restaurant and being out there. We have a mental health block that's with Kenya McKnight with Black Women's Wealth Alliance. She's coordinating that block right there to really have a focus on mental health. The Minnesota Orchestra is coming out. They're actually sponsoring one of our stages on the Justice Built Communities block. And so we have about 6 different stages going on with music throughout the day. And so it should really be a big event. It should be fun. It should be something for everybody. We've got youth vendors. We've got seniors. We have the Black Storytellers Alliance that's coming out to do some storytelling. So it's really something for everybody. We've got COVID vaccines. It's a little bit of something for everybody happening throughout. And so it's a lot going on, but it's really exciting because it's really 17 blocks of community and fun, and it really reflecting what all of the things that North Minneapolis has to offer.
I think it's so important that this continues and grows each year. As you think about it, what statement are we making about who we are as a community? And I'll ask Diana and Dee to respond to that as well. But Shameka, from an organizer's point of view, I know there's an intention here. There's an intention that we are speaking to ourselves and speaking to the universe at the same time. How would you describe that, Shameka?
Absolutely. I think the intention is really showcasing that we can do things and we can do it well. And we have a lot of capacity within our communities. The one thing I will say about this event, it's really interesting because how I mentioned there are 5 Open Streets Minneapolis events. All of them really look like and reflect the community that they're in. So you have like Minnehaha, and you have Lake Street, and then you have Franklin, and then you have U of M campus, and then you have West Broadway. And I may be a little biased because I really love West Broadway, but I will say that, when people look on the news and they see things, I think sometimes people from outside of the community have a bit of a preconceived notion about what West Broadway is. Like, I don't think that they see like fun and culture and excitement. Sometimes I think they're like, oh, is this like a negative? Like, maybe it's a bad place. And I think it's so much more than that. We have families too. We have schools, we have churches, we have businesses, we have stores, we have pop-up shops, we have good music, we have good food. And so I think that this event is really one of those things that can bring everybody together and give everybody a chance to have like a little bit of their personality. Some of the seniors that I worked with, there are certain things that are important to them that maybe the younger people aren't thinking about. And then some of the younger people, there's things that are important to them or that are fun to them that maybe the older people aren't thinking about. Some of the churches, there's things that they want to do outreach wise or just being out there to hand out bottles of water that, it's outside of their 4 walls, but it reflects them and just being kind to people. So I think it really gives everybody enough space to do what it is that they want to do, and for people to really be able to come in and see that melting pot of North Minneapolis and the community.
Diana and Dee, what do you guys think when you see successful projects like this come online? What are your hopes and what are your expectations?
Well, let me just say this, Al, as someone who was one of the originators of Open Streets way back in my West Broadway days. And I'm happy to be back again with Shameka because Hawthorne is a part of Open Streets this year. Seeing the change over the 30 years, it's amazing. She's right. It's about culture. It's about bringing the families together. It's about bringing the businesses together. So I'm very pleased that it's live again. You know what I mean? So it's just like really, really interesting to me to have Shameka. And I've been with her for a couple years doing this now. So I'm glad she's back in person to do it, you know. Dee, what you think?
Well, I think it's kind of what Shameka said, is letting people know outside of North Minneapolis and outside of West Broadway what we are, who we are, and it's not the negative that's always portrayed in the news and in the media.
Michael, jump in here. Michael, good to see you. I know that you're going to be involved in Open Streets as well. What is the role that you're going to be playing? And introduce your friend Britt as well. Bring her into the conversation.
Well, I think I will defer to Britt because, you know, she's kind of the queen of Open Streets. She has been involved with it for many years in many different sectors of the city. And this year, she is actually curating a portion of the Open Streets and has invited myself and a few other Northside urban farm leaders in the green movement to join her in a panel discussion. So, but again, I concur with all of your other guests that, you know, oftentimes we always think of marginalized communities as kind of a whole. And rather than realize that it's also made up of marginalized citizens and people who are discounted, discredited. And so it's always great when these kind of opportunities, that's been a big part of the work of Project Sweetie Pie, is how can we demonstrate our humanity and our leadership as citizens of the world, that, you know, we're not just you know, Black artists or Black carpenters or Black scientists. You know, we are leading the way, paving the way for all of humanity. And it's through events like this that we can really show our A game and bring in people. So Britt, like I said, I will defer to the Queen of Green, Britt Howell, who is working with us not only on the Open Streets on Broadway, but she's also going to be working with us on the event that we're staging September 24th. We're going to be working with Kimball Musk, the Big Green Org, and a host of other partners for another Harvest Festival. So Britt, why don't you introduce yourself to the McFarlane media family?
Hello, everyone. ¿Cómo estás, Al?
Bueno. Mil gracias.
I'm Britt.
¿Eres latina también?
Sí, también.
Bueno.
So I'm Britt Howell. I'm with BF50 Indigenous Health. I have been programming Open Streets since 2015. Franklin, Minnehaha, Lake Street, as well as West Broadway. I am curating a small portion, as Shameka likes to refer to, 1/4 of the block over on West Broadway. But most importantly, we have a roundtable that we really want people to show up and come out and listen to what we're talking about. So we're doing sustainable food, equity and access to food as it relates to green zones. We're going to have our Michael Cheney will be co-hosting that with me. Wolfpack Promotions is going to host the event, the roundtable, and we have a host of others joining us to really talk about access and how do we go from food deserts to food sovereignty. That's most importantly, but that's not all we're doing. We're working really closely with Shameka. We have artists coming in. We have Dread I Dread, PB Dread artists. They'll be singing. We do have a youth artist that was from Michael Cheney's Step Up Youth Farm Program, who will be there showing off her art. She's a fabulous young 17-year-old teenager. I really want people to come out and see this work. It is above and beyond her age. I mean, it's just amazing the work that she puts out. We're going to have our I'm Native American and West Indian, so we're going to have our Aztec dancers. We're going to have our grass dancers. We're going to have another person that works closely with Michael on the farm, Anita Gates. She'll be coming out to honor the land for us. So we're just hoping that people come out and check out our small little portion from North Logan, West Broadway, to just a little bit past Wolfpack Promotions. Just come out and support us. We also have our Urban Farm Bike Tour, where every year I partner with Nice Ride. And the farms that we're going to be going to see, obviously, are going to be farms that Michael has his hands in. So just come out and join us.
Awesome. Shameka, jump in. Anything you want to add to this, or just keep I have questions, but I want to get every voice in. And Brenda, I'll come to you next, but Shameka, jump in here, and then we'll have Brenda come in with comments and thoughts and questions.
Yeah, I just want to say exactly as Britt mentioned, it's exciting and there's so many things for people to come out. Exactly how she mentioned, and don't minimize, even though it's a fourth of a block, she has all of these great things. And as you hear her and Michael talking about all of these great things, to me, that's a part of the beauty with this event, because there's so many more of those things just like that, with a different subject or a different topic. And it's really all of these little mini events that create this one large festival. And you have culture. And as Britt mentioned, you have the Native American culture, you have the African culture, you have the Black culture, you have all of these different cultures that make up North Minneapolis. And I just think that's a part of the beauty. I remember when I first started, and how Diana mentioned her being there and Britt being there. When I first started, they welcomed me with open arms and were like, yes, you have all this energy and excitement. Come on, let us tell you how it works. And I was like, oh, y'all my aunties, yay. But yeah, so I'm just so excited for their excitement, so excited for the community's excitement. And last thing I'll say before you ask your questions, I just think that that's a part of what makes events successful, when you include the community and you include multiple organizations and entities and people, and they feel like it's our event and not like, oh, I'm coming to your event, or this is just West Broadway and our streets event. Like, my goal was to come in and just help to be a liaison and like make this feel like it's our event. It's everybody's event. It's the community's event for the North Side. And so go ahead with your questions, Al.
Well, first of all, let me bring my colleague, Brenda Lyle-Gray. And Brenda, what do you think? What's your thoughts, impressions, feelings about what we've discussed so far?
Well, I think it sounds exciting. Shameka, I don't live in Minnesota. I'm in the mountains of Santa Fe, New Mexico. But one of the things I am concerned about, and I don't want to dampen the fun, but I hope you have a voting registration booth. It is going to be awfully critical that people become aware, not necessarily, I think November 8th, but 2 years following. I mean, this is really serious. I sent my boss an email this morning and I said, I can't believe that I woke up to this, that if Trump is indicted, we're going to have riots in the street. Well, I don't think Minneapolis can take too much more. So I really think we need to really come together. And it sounds 17 blocks of all of these different organizations, and then fun for the kids, with school just starting, they need it. So, but, over in a corner someplace, if there's a voting registration or information as to how people can be legally registered for what's coming up. So Minneapolis does so many great things. I mean, the activities, even with Tito over the weekend, that was fabulous. I mean, I was reading the front page and just seeing, and then I'm, writing about the mental health care with Dr. Carter, and learning so much of the history and the trauma of mental health. And so, his festivities over the weekend were just great. So I commend Minneapolis. And of course, I am biased because I commend Insight News for reporting it. And I am a fan of Diana Hawkins and Dee Phillipps and the work that has been done with Hawthorne. Just unbelievable. And I will kind of add, I miss Andrew. He was really, really good. So please, I send my regards, Diana.
Well, let me say this. Let me pass the microphone back to Shameka. You mentioned, the urgency of political engagement. Shameka Bogan knows everything about politics, and so that was simply a door opener for you, Shameka, to tell, in a sense, to give marching orders to our community about the importance and talk about your experience in the political realm. People don't know that people might know one aspect, but you do so much in so many different places. So talk about politics in general, things that you're involved in, and the importance, as Brenda has mentioned, of us mobilizing ourselves so that we show up and that we vote in the midterm and in the general.
Absolutely. Well, you hit the nail on the head with what you said with that, Miss Brenda. I absolutely believe that a lot of the events and the things that we do, it has to be a both and approach. I don't think that it can be like a voter rally or like a barbecue block party. Like, I think that we have to start merging those things together so that we can reach new people. Because if we continue to just put the voter registration tables in the corner where nobody sees it, or the people that are comfortable with it go to it, then we're not doing that strong outreach that we need to be doing. And so definitely, as a part of Open Streets, there are opportunities for people to ask questions if they have questions. In my opinion, I think sometimes voter education is just one of those things that people don't want to come out and ask the questions, but they don't know the answer. And so I know Al mentioned, when I first got on here, I know he mentioned that I work for Senator Champion's office. And so I'm legislative assistant to State Senator Bobby Joe Champion. And one of the things that I often tease him about when I first started working for him, I was very hesitant to take the job because politics was not my cup of tea. So when I came on board 3 sessions ago, I was like, I can be an assistant all day. I can do secretary work. I can manage a calendar. I can connect in the community. But I was like, oh, wait, politics? I don't like that. So I don't think I want to do it. And I will say, I've learned so much over the years. And even for those people, the friends that I have now or the people that I interact with now that say, girl, I don't like politics. You only like politics now because you work in it. No, I only like politics now because even though I realized then the importance behind it, I realize even more so now how important it is for us to know about those elections that happen every 2 years or those elections that happen every 4 years, and really realize that whether you like it or not, these people are going to make decisions for you. So you might as well have some input into what they're saying and hold them accountable, because otherwise then you're complaining about the things that they're advocating for. And you're saying, we don't want this, we don't want that, when you could have had a say. At least if you have a say, then, you can choose how much you say. And so I absolutely agree. There are several organizations that are working on voter engagement and stuff that will be a part of this and will be front and center with being out there. So I know the League of Women Voters are registered. There's this amazing group called Minnesota Teen Activists. They're teenagers, so they've been really good about advocating and helping people get registered to vote, and teenagers and young adults.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
For sure. And so they've been a big part of stuff. Pimento Relief Services, and they have like a PAC division that they do, a political action committee. And so they're really dedicated to getting people registered to vote. And of course, there's a lot of other ones. And the way that I approach these types of events, even when we have like our political candidates that come out, I always encourage them to be engaging. Don't just send out your staff person to be at the table and sit there. Come out and talk. Have the candidate first, come out first of all. That's important. But I understand they can't always stay the whole time. But even the people at the table, think about the community that you're in and the community that you want to serve. And you have to reflect that. And you have to be able to answer these questions. And I always encourage people, ask tough questions. Don't go to the people that are running for office and ask these simple surface questions of oh, how do you feel about people getting shot sitting in their cars? I don't think that they're going to tell you, oh, well, we think that's normal in this area. Like, ask them the tough questions. Like, you realize this is at 92% or this is happening like this. What are you going to do about that if you get my vote? Like, ask those tough questions so that they really have to answer them and then hold them accountable. And so, Ms. Brenda, I absolutely agree. That has to be a major part of this. And it's been something that we've been talking about and actively working on.
And kudos to you, because you're working for with a champion.
Absolutely.
I've written a lot about him, and he is just phenomenal. I just love his energy, and he doesn't hesitate. He's the male version of Diana Hawkins. You don't cross.
He'll like that.
You know, Bobby's a really good friend of mine, Brenda. You know that, right?
Yes, no, he is fantastic to work for. And as I said, that's one of those things that was like my only hesitation. Like, I don't know politics. And, you know, one of the things I asked him, like, are you sure? I just want to make sure that you're hearing me when I'm telling you that I don't understand politics. And he was like, you'll learn. If you have, you know, these basics and these principles and you're focused on the community, you'll learn. And he was absolutely right. I have learned so much, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work for his office. And I will say that is one thing that he really, really advocates for, is for judging people based off of their qualifications and not simply what a piece of paper says. A piece of paper will say this person should be able to do this, they should be able to do that, and they may not know anyone in the community or be able to do anything. And so he is really great about giving people an opportunity and sharing his platform.
But you know what he's also great about, Shameka? He takes advice from the elders. Yes, you know, he loves Al, you know, because he's able to communicate with him. And he always mentions in the interview, you know, how grateful he is, you know, Stair Step and these organizations that are led and supported by the elders. I mean, Al and I are 75. Well, he's not 75 yet. He's got 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But I turned 75 in March. And, you know, we think about going all the way back 70 years and we were 5 years old, and we're saying, you know, things have really changed. I mean, I really woke up angry this morning, and I woke up angry because I thought of the kids. And here's this Lindsey Graham talking about, well, we're just going to hit the streets. And I ask Al, for what purpose? You know, so I want your event to be fun, but we're in a climate now, we got to get serious.
Absolutely.
To protect them.
And can I jump here, Brenda? Shameka has my mapping. I just want you to know I have 2 tables. I have the People's Canvas, which is made up of Latinx and East African American people. They'll be out doing voter registration.
Great.
I also have a DFL table, and they go with me to all of my open streets. And they're really out there on the street, tabling like everyone else. They're not just out here with no place to go. They have their own table. They have questionnaires. So they will be there, and they're Spitfires. They're young Spitfires.
Oh, good.
And so, yes, I always included.
That's so encouraging.
Shameka, Bob, I've heard you say Bobby Champion often tells people this is regarding the need to be engaged, involved, to represent yourself as an owner of society, of community, of governance. Bobby Joe Champion says, either you're at the table or you're on the menu.
I know, that's his favorite saying. I love
not even a question of somebody eating your lunch. It's you being the lunch
on the menu
for somebody else. And so we have to just think that way and act that way. And number one, have the confidence and knowledge to know that you know, our place is at the table of decision, and that our voices matter, our vision matters, our interests matter, and that nobody can articulate that for us but us. That's why I'm in the newspaper business. That's why I'm a communicator. And the motto of the Black press is that we wish to plead our own cause to ourselves and to the universe. And Michael Chaney, one of the many things I admire you for, that I love about you, is your phenomenal and grand vision, your ability to imagine what can be, to articulate alternative futures that are based on both the realities of the present, but also the rich lessons of history. And I often tell people how you kind of stopped me in my tracks one day when you said and you described Plymouth Avenue as the Nile Valley of North Minneapolis. That was at a time when the Thor building was coming online. And two things happened. Another colleague, a friend of yours and mine, once approached me. He was on his bicycle. I'm in my car, stopped at the stoplight. This is when the hole was being dug. The building wasn't up yet. But the friend said, man, look at this. Maybe they started building the structure. And he said, this is like the pyramid. It's our pyramid. And so juxtapose just a conversation with two guys at a stoplight. And one says, this feels like a pyramid, because it had the feeling of the building the National Museum going up in Washington. It doesn't look like it, but there's a feeling, right, of this development, of this creation in the heart of our community, being created by our people, and for posterity. And so this brother saying this is like the pyramid, and then having a few days or months or a year earlier talked to Michael Chaney, and Chaney declaring that the Plymouth Avenue that I envision is a Plymouth Avenue that is like the Nile, the giver of life. And that is so important, because we've been acculturated into believing that Plymouth Avenue is the taker of life, that our communities both are destroyers and destroyed, and that we fail of our own volition, and that as a group, we buy into the notion that emerges out of white supremacist thought that there is an inferior position that is ours and a superior position that white people occupy. Everything you say, Michael Chaney, without besmirching or condemning white people, everything you say talks about the elevation of human beings, and the elevation you speak of and envision and articulate flows through an acknowledgement of our own history, our ancient history, our present, and futures that can be built from that. So, Michael, I say that to say thank you, and to ask you to talk about this ideation process. And Britt, I want you to jump in here too, because I think it's an important conversation, one that we need to have all the time around the dinner table, around the lunch table, as we walk, as we bike. Let's talk about our dream, our vision for the kind of community and society that we must and that we are building for ourselves and our family. Michael, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to start off the conversation way I do all my conversations when I'm in a group of where two or more gather, there I shall be. North Minneapolis is going green. Give us a call and learn what we mean. Where once lie urban blight, now sits luscious garden sites, gardens without borders, classrooms without walls, architects of our own destinies, access to food, justice for all. And now, like sweet potato vines, our missions and goals all intertwine. It all begins with food. Well, that is the common denominator that all of us on this conversation, at some point in time during the course of the day, we will break bread and we will sit down with our families. And so it's often bothered me that, again, that as you know, you hear young brothers and sisters say, well, I don't do dirt. Or they run away from urban farming and growing their own food because they attach it to the shame of what they see as slavery, of physical labor. Well, that is really our badge of honor, because it is code for our resiliency as African people. And so for wars are fought and won over food supply. And for us as people not to maintain that heritage, not to have that skill, and not to be passing it down to our young people is it's unimaginable that we are so short-sighted that we are not maintaining that legacy, that heritage. Brothers and sisters in slavery brought collards woven into their hair, smuggling in our own cultural foods to this continent. And so it's incumbent on us as freedom fighters, as leaders, as thought leaders, that we are continuing that legacy and that we're advancing it. And so that's why, as a poet, I use the metaphor, the Nile of the North, because it is our, we often talks about Broadway, but Plymouth Avenue was the home of a black bank 20, 30 years ago. And it was the home before 68 and the riots. It was the seat of commerce. And so don't ask what is, imagine what can be. And that's the work that I try to be proactive, not reactive, because I believe that urban farming, local food production is the latest iteration of the civil rights movement. We shouldn't be asking the Minneapolis public schools, can we get a contract to grow the vegetables for that school? We should be going back to push of the 60s fame, the bus boycotts, the sit-ins at the drugstores, and we should be demanding a contract from the city of Minneapolis that we provide the food source that is going to those young and black and brown bodies that make up the majority of population. That's development. That's economic development. And so you'll never hear me talk about food access simply in a silo, but I look at it as a strategy and a blueprint for building prosperity for not only our families, but our communities as a whole, as we try to build a pathway forward to the future. And the future begins today, make no mistake about it.
How would that look? I'm glad you said that, Michael Chaney. How would that look if you had enough urban farms to supply all of the vegetables, for example, to start with vegetables, and maybe farms that were greenhouse inclusive where you could maintain vegetable production throughout the winter as well? How would that look in terms of both training people in the community about gardening, about food, but also about providing jobs? How would it look in terms of commerce, of revenue? And how could that be one of the engines of financial viability for our community? And you are right, the public schools, we own it, and why hasn't the question been raised? And as you raise it now, how do we bring our sense of purpose and power to a decision that supports our people and our vision, our capacity to deliver value for ourselves and for the schools?
Well, folks may not know the name Kimball Musk, but they do know the name Elon Musk, the guy who Tesla, the guy who's, SpaceX. And so imagine, if you will, because everything starts, I tell our young people, life is about design. It's about physics. Either the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. So first of all, let's imagine a situation where, with the support of Elon Musk, that we can find solutions that are out of this world. What would that look like? That would look like every black church, sanctuary, Shiloh, would have a hydroponics facility in their backyard where they would be doing vertical farming, and they would be growing year round. Doesn't that sound a little more appealing and futuristic than us having the old-fashioned bake sale, the old-fashioned bake a pie or some rummage sale? Let's, as African Americans, let's not live in the past or allow people to relegate us to the leftovers of society. Let's be thought leaders and be innovators. And let's talk about putting a vertical farm similar to the one that is up at North Market. They have one there, so the technology exists, where we put that on every church parking lot. We put that at every school, and our children in the school are. And then let's aggregate that in one of the neighborhood associations that is oftentimes dire, looking for strategies and ways to fundraise. And again, trying to do a yard sale or a bake sale. What if we put our imagine toward the collective, and we really challenge the Minnesota Department of Ag and the USDA to give us the resources to put a vertical farm in all of our backyards, in all of our schoolyards, in all of our nonprofits and faith-based leadership. And then we all start growing produce that then we have aggregated to the scale, because we're thinking about scale, and that we can now be a vendor to Minneapolis public schools. And I want to go further. A vendor who is selling that produce to Elon Musk, where his people are eating that on their space station when they get there. We'll be there as African Americans when they get there, because our produce will be right there with them.
Britt, you're applauding and smiling. Jump in the conversation, would you? And speak to the question of intersectionality. I think that's the word that's being used a lot, but you introduced yourself as a person with Caribbean and indigenous roots. And so what does this conversation mean to you? What do you bring to it, honoring those legacies and heritages?
Everything. Well, first, let me just say I'm a transient. I'm from the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. One of the first people I met when I moved here was Michael Chaney. Someone met me and I said, "Oh, I just graduated from Native American seed saving school." And I don't know if you know much about it, but there's not a lot in the US. There's not a lot of certified Native American seed savers. And so
what is it again? Native
American seed savers.
What
it's
is
where
that?
we go to school. We train to be, seeds, learn how to exchange our seeds, save our seeds. And then once we graduate, I went through Shakopee Wacaton. Then we go off to Iowa to put our name in a library. So when you search that as a Native American person, you search that library, my name's there. And then if you're looking for a particular heirloom seed, you can contact me. And then I can exchange one of my heirloom seeds with one of your heirloom seeds. But all of those seeds have to be planted on indigenous land in Native American communities, indigenous communities. We don't take those seeds and then give them to Seward Co-op, which, people have asked me to come and do that type of thing. So the purpose is so that we are continuing to grow our own food, keep our food in our culture. And that is the purpose. As I said, when I first moved here, I met someone who said, "You've got to meet Michael Chaney. He's going to love you." So I met Michael Chaney. It's the first person I met. I did my very first urban farm tour with Michael Chaney and the youth farm in 2014. And I've been doing it ever since. We've been rolling together ever since. One of the things I was telling the kids the other day, so I was a keynote speaker at Michael's farm last week. One of the things I told the step-up children, they were there, they were having a good time, but they were diligent and they were working and it was serious. And I brought somebody along with me to photograph everything. And every photograph you saw that these children did not come to play. They came to grow food. And when we sit down and had our conversations, one of the things I said to them is, don't let this be a hobby. Don't let this be a summer job so you can go out and buy some new shoes. You need to take this, everything you learned from a pillar in this community, take this back to your homes. Take this to your parents. Get your parents to join this whole mission of growing your own food. Because one thing that can happen, when the pandemic was happening, we were still growing our own food. So we didn't have to go out and force ourselves into grocery stores where, we don't know what's in there. I just walked downstairs and picked my food and cooked it and ate it. So this is the thing, right? So we have to really start thinking like that. And as Michael said, people, I don't do farms and I don't do dirt. Well, you must not want to eat because you must not have an appetite. Because if you want to eat, you had better really start thinking about growing your own food, and not just any food, growing it naturally, organically, and with an indigenous tone behind it, because that's one thing no one could take from you. If you think about all those days when you hear people, my parents are old enough to be my grandparents. So I came from some good stock. My dad was born in 1919. My mom was born in 1925. So I know the stories of the 40s and the 50s, okay? When I meet people who are in their 70s, they go, "My God, you have an old soul." Well, I came from Old Stock. Okay. And they taught me
We have old souls, boss.
right. They taught me about what it was like, back in those days. You had better grow your own food if you wanted to eat. So we have to think the way they thought. And I've never let go of that process. I never let go of that concept. When I'm teaching, I teach plant-based education, I'm all about the plant-based lifestyle. So, but one of the things I was cooking at Shakopee at Walkaton for 3 years. We sold out every year when I was there to do my cooking, because one of the things we call it is plant-based with a twist. And the twist is vegan and plant-based food does not have to taste like dirt or grass. When you come and taste this food, and Michael had it in back when I first came here, you're going to get that West Indian flavor. You're going to get that native Three Sisters flavor. You're going to get all the flavor you need just embodied in these vegetables. And then what are you doing? You're taking care of your health. You're taking care of your heart. If more people start making it, it doesn't have to be what you do all the time. I always tell people start with Meatless Mondays. So just start with a Monday, right? If you start watching what you put into your bodies and stop talking this old enslaved mentality, our parents and our grandparents ate that way because they didn't have a choice. They had to eat what was left over for them. They didn't eat that because they wanted it. It was such a delicacy, right? They made it into a delicacy because that's what we do. We have magic in our hands. We can take lemon and make lemonade for real. So the bottom line is we have to eat better. We have to know better. And as Maya Angelou says, the doctor says, when you know better, you absolutely do better. And when it comes to eating, we got to quit making jokes and stop all this silliness about it. Oh, I love if it's not mooing and all that old silly stuff. Stop it. We have to do better. We have to eat better. You know what I mean, Miss Brenda?
She said, stop it.
Stop it. We have to start eating
Oh,
better.
great.
You know what I mean? We have to teach our children better. And then in some cases, the children have to start actually educating their parents. And they can start by getting them out there in the farm, growing that food, letting them see the beauty behind it. I mean, I saw these children. I'm telling you, not one kid was there to mess around. Not one kid was there to play around. If you could hear the questions, I don't know if we recorded that day, but the questions the young children were asking me was absolutely, they were on point.
Yeah.
I said, I want you to come and be at the round table. They were like, we'll be there. Because they're interested. They know how important it is. They know more so than older people than we do, how important it is to start growing their own food, going about how you're going to do that. And what Michael's telling you all right there, that is vertical growing. I'm telling you, it is innovative. I'm telling you, it's the next best thing. And I'm just wrap your brains around.
I want to tell you something real quick. I know we're out of time, are getting close. But I worked for Governor Richardson down here. That's how I got down to New Mexico. And my paternal grandfather was Black Cherokee. So I really kind of wanted to know that side. I worked we have 19 pueblos. So I worked on 4, but most of my work was down in Zuni. And we had 150-year-old seeds that the elders had given us. And there was going to be vegetables that people had never tasted. And the kids at Zuni High School were so excited. The GOP came in 2010 and wiped it all out. And it was getting ready to go national. But it was just the idea that elders had kept these seeds for so long, and that the potential was there.
Yes.
It broke my heart, but, it goes on. It doesn't mean that, they can't do it now. But I just think, first of all, Michael Chaney, I love hearing you speak. I mean, the passion and just, you could just see your mind working underneath your hat. It's admirable. But it's important. We have Healing Circle on Fridays, which is so powerful. And Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya is just like out of this world as far as I'm concerned. And she mentioned one thing. She said, I forgot that proverb, Al, that she said that if something about the fools, and by the time you learn the game, the players have dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Michael Chaney was saying. If we don't start now to combat these diseases that Tito was talking about and live your best life with all of the medical personnel that he had in that activity, if we don't start doing it, I don't like bananas, but I found a way to make a smoothie with a banana.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways of us being able to eat healthy and sometimes enjoying it. I mean, when you get old like us, we better eat healthy. But we grew up that way. I one of my favorite pictures of my youngest daughter was in a straw hat out in the backyard with her grandmother. And she's now, my youngest one is 41. And that is a favorite picture of mine because they're picking green beans and they're picking tomatoes and cucumbers. And the girls grew up remembering that that's what's going to help their body when they get their mother's age. So anyway, kudos, all of you.
But I agree, Al, with Brenda and Britt, because I have witnessed firsthand the work that Michael is doing. There's a garden right across from the Hawthorne office, and the dedication that those youth show to that it's amazing. It's really amazing. And I hear them sometime when I'm at the office, and it's kind of like, these kids is really over there. It's too hot to be out there, but they're dedicated. You know what I mean? To eating healthy. So, yep, kudos to you, Michael, because I have witnessed that work.
Well, I just want to say it's all about building capacity, and we have to build infrastructure. We may not have the financial wherewithal to open up, businesses or whatever, but we can give our young people good health. We can give them a work ethic. We can give them a way to apply and be beneficial with their time and learn how important time is, and realizing the fruits of their labor. And that's why gardening is so important to me. I use a metaphor of a petri dish. A petri dish is where you add different cultures and different ingredients. And over time, you add a little of this and a little of that, and you're changing the composition of that. Gardening is about being, if we're all well-intentioned, let's be intentional. And as a community, Project Sweetie Pie, the story of a community that came together, worked together for the common good of the youth and family of a community, for it takes a village to raise a child. This is just a way, it's the Nguza Saba in practice, in a way that we can build businesses and youth from the ground up.
Shameka, let me go to you again. I often ask my guests to talk about their personal story. I think it means a lot. And so, and if you're willing, you can always say no, Al, but talk about where you come from, whose shoulders you stand on. And I'm asking that in the sense of inviting you to honor your ancestors and the people that brought you to become the Shameka Bogan that is a jewel in our community today.
Thanks, Al. No, absolutely. I will share. And just hearing the conversation, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I think about me growing up. So I grew up in the South. I was raised in Alabama. So I was born in Minnesota. My grandparents retired and moved to Alabama. And I moved down there with them. So I was raised by my grandparents. And it's just so interesting because living in the city now, I feel like the majority of youth and people, even young adults, people that are under 30, I don't know that they really think about where our food comes from. As Britt kind of mentioned, and Mr. Chaney mentioned, with just being able to grow your own things and the idea behind the church doing that. I don't know that a lot of people really think of green beans, picking those. I think that I know they come from somewhere, but I just think even now, me being an adult, I think back to my time in Alabama. As I mentioned, I was raised with my grandparents. And so the setting, I'm sure you can all imagine this, but the setting was, we had this plot of land that was on a hill. My grandmother's sister was right behind her. They all had these double wide trailers. This was like a family thing. So this was the land that they grew up on. So, she got one, her sister got one. You go down the hill, her brother's down there. So my great uncle, you go across the hill just a little ways. One of their nieces gets a trailer over there. And so this was really a very sacred thing. Me being down there as a child, I just kind of thought it was kind of funny, but it was weird. It's like, okay, go down the hill and get some greens from your uncle. And I was kind of like, okay, whatever. It was just normal. Looking at it now, I'm like, oh my gosh. Or even, when I've taken my kids, we don't go as often. My grandparents have both since passed away, as well as my great aunts and uncles. But I'm like, man, they will never know what it's like to be 10 years old and learn how to wash greens. And your grandmother be like, no, baby, you got to get that grit out of there. Rinse them greens again. Put some salt in that water. And you see like caterpillars coming out of the water. I think that people nowadays are like, you did what? And you got to can them. And then you got to, it's a process. It's a process to all of it. And so it's honestly such an honor to just sit here and hear the stories that you all are sharing, and even how Mr. Cheney talked about just like thinking in a different way. It's almost like we're in a society where like it's easier to be like, oh, okay, like we'll keep selling cupcakes and we'll keep selling brownies and we'll keep doing like concessions at events, versus like kind of taking a bigger step and doing something that just sounds so crazy. But as you mentioned, like with Elon Musk, and I don't know a whole lot about him, but like some of these other people, same thing with Bill Gates. Everybody has like a crazy idea. And then when it takes off, people are like, this is not even like a crazy thing. This just kind of goes back to our roots and what our parents and grandparents and great grandparents had to do to survive. But somehow along the way, we've gotten like comfortable and away from it. Like, no, I'm going to go to the store. The stores always have what we need. And then when things like COVID happened, we see, even like 6 months ago, I felt like I couldn't get peanut butter at the store. And I'm like, man, I remember like in the South, they would have just made some peanut butter. But here I am like, what's up with the Target truck? What are y'all doing? And so, to answer your question, grew up with my grandparents in the South, very much aunts and uncles, which were actually like great aunts and uncles, surrounded me and just teaching me all of these little life skills that you don't realize how valuable they are until it comes full circle. And then here I am, 32 years old, being like, oh, I want to do this for the community, or like, why do I want to do this for the community? And then as my mom and my aunts here tell me little stories about how my grandfather, when he retired, how he retired from Pilot City, which is now North Point, and it coming like full circle, like, oh, that's why we were around there, when I would visit up here or before I moved down there. And so all of these little things, it's all of these seeds that are planted in you over time. When you really look at them and see like the full circle effect, it's just really amazing. And I'm truly grateful for all of my elders that are constantly pouring things into me and into my kids, and hope that I can do the same for the next generation too. So.
Shameka, let me have you close the program by once again extending the invitation to Open Streets this Saturday, right?
2 Saturdays away.
Okay.
September 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you again, Al. Thank you, Insight News. You all are fantastic. Diana, Miss Brenda, Brit Fit 50, Mr. Cheney, Miss D, all of you. Thank you so much. Again, Saturday, September 10th, 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Sorry.
That was cute. Excuse me.
The kids were
Michael,
so
I want to mention, the GOP is trying to cut the brown and black free lunches, free breakfasts. And so we need these young people understanding, and a former educator, I'm sorry, I'm really concerned about them. And if they don't do it this year, they're going to manage to cut those free breakfasts and lunches. And we need to be prepared to protect our kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. All of those things are so important. But again, if you guys have any questions, anybody watching, you can find it online. It's Open Streets West Broadway. There's an Eventbrite for it. There's a Facebook for it. There's some billboards up and down West Broadway. But again, inviting everybody to come out and join us. It's a free event. You don't need any tickets or any registration or anything, only if you're a vendor. But 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you. And thank you for having me.
That's it today. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Take care. Bye-bye.
Keep that